Hello and welcome to Nightmare Lullabies. As you settle in for the night, prepare to be immersed in a world of eerie whispers and unsettling tales, designed to both chill and soothe. Now, close your eyes, relax, and let the darkness carry you away. And if these nightly tales captivate you, feel free to join our community for more whispered secrets. Lena had always been an observer, a quiet presence, lingering in the background, studying details that others overlooked. She had an uncanny ability to notice the small things. Changes in routine, favorite coffee orders, subtle shifts in facial expressions. It was this skill that led her to him. Daniel. He wasn't just another boy. He was the boy. The one who made her feel alive, the one she believed was meant for her. From the first moment she saw him in their university lecture hall, she knew it. He was perfect. The way he laughed, the way he ran his hand through his dark hair, the kindness in his eyes when he spoke to his friends. But Daniel never noticed her. Not in the way she wanted him to. At first, she told herself it was fine. Love took time. People just needed a little push, a little guidance. And if Daniel didn't realize they were perfect for each other yet, then she would help him see it. So she followed him. At first, it was subtle. She learned his schedule. What time he arrived on campus, when he left, where he liked to sit in the library. She sat nearby, making sure he would see her, hoping for some kind of acknowledgement. Then she found his Instagram. It was easy, just a name search, a few clicks, and suddenly she had access to his world. His posts were innocent, normal. Pictures of him with friends, captions about weekend plans, a few scenic shots from his travels. But Lena saw more than just images. She saw patterns, who he interacted with the most, the places he frequented, the restaurants he tagged. She followed them all. Every friend, every acquaintance, every location. She built a map in her mind, connecting the dots, piecing together his life as if it were a puzzle meant just for her to solve. But Instagram wasn't enough. Soon she found his Facebook, his TikTok, his Snapchat. Each platform offered a new glimpse into his life, a different angle of his personality. She watched his Snapchat stories obsessively, taking screenshots before they disappeared, memorizing every detail of the background, looking for clues about where he was, who he was with. She wanted more, and she found it. Lena's breakthrough came when Daniel posted a casual update on TikTok. Just a short clip of him sitting at his favorite cafe, sipping on his usual caramel latte. The location tag was there. She was there within the hour. Sitting 2 tables away, hidden behind a book, she watched him, studied him, imagined what it would be like to sit across from him, to have him look at her the way he looked at his friends. She typed out a message but didn't send it. Instead, she just let the words sit there. Then she sent a friend request. And waited. Nothing. Minutes passed, then hours. She refreshed the page repeatedly, but the request remained unanswered. Why? She gritted her teeth. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he hadn't seen it. Or maybe someone else had distracted him. A girl. Lena's fingers flew across her phone screen. She scrolled through his followers, analyzed every like, every comment, every interaction he had with other girls. There were a few frequent names, nothing that seemed overly suspicious. But one girl appeared too often. Her name was Emma. She was pretty, smiling in every picture. Her comments on Daniel's posts were light and teasing. And worst of all, he liked them. A new feeling bubbled inside Lena. This wasn't fair. Emma didn't know Daniel the way she did. She didn't see him the way Lena did. Lena wasn't just another admirer. She was the right one for him. And she wasn't about to let Emma take that away. That night, Lena created a second account. A blank profile, no real name, no pictures. Just an alias and a purpose. She followed Emma. She watched. And she planned. Lena had never been the jealous type. At least, that's what she told herself. But jealousy wasn't the right word for what she felt when she saw Daniel interacting with Emma. It wasn't mere envy, it was frustration, confusion. How could he not see what was right in front of him? How could he waste his time with someone like her when Lena was right here? Watching, waiting. Emma wasn't good for him. Lena was sure of it. And now she had to prove it. The first thing Lena did was immerse herself in Emma's world. It wasn't enough to just look at her social media pages anymore. She needed to know Emma. Every detail, every flaw, every moment of weakness. She made lists. Emma's morning routine: wakes up around 7 a.m., goes for a run, posts a quick mirror selfie before heading to class. Favorite coffee shop: a small cafe near campus. Orders vanilla oat milk lattes. Always takes a picture of it. Social circle: a mix of classmates, old high school friends, and acquaintances from university. None of them looked particularly close to her. Daniel's interactions with her: frequent likes on her posts, comments that felt too comfortable, too personal. The patterns were clear. Emma was in the way, and Lena needed to fix that. She didn't just watch Emma anymore, she became Emma. She started going to the same coffee shop, ordering the same drinks, mirroring her outfits. She made sure to be at the same places, to be close enough for Daniel to notice her more. And when that wasn't enough, she took it further. She followed Emma home. Just once at first. It was easy. Emma wasn't careful. She walked the same way every day, never checking behind her, never questioning why she might see the same stranger at the corner of her street. Lena kept her distance, memorizing every detail: the apartment number, the floor, even the type of key she used. All important pieces of the puzzle. But still, Daniel hadn't noticed Lena the way he noticed Emma. So she had to push harder. The first anonymous message was simple: "Are you sure Daniel is as faithful as you think?" Sent from a blank Instagram account, it was vague, harmless, just enough to plant a seed of doubt. Emma saw it. Lena watched as Emma hesitated before dismissing it. That was fine. It was only the beginning. The next messages came from different accounts. "Daniel's been hanging out with someone else. Haven't you noticed? I saw him the other night. You really trust him. You should ask him what he's been doing when you're not around." Each message chipped away at Emma's confidence. Lena could see the change. Emma started posting less about Daniel. The comments between them became less frequent. But Lena needed more. It wasn't enough to just make Emma doubt Daniel. Lena needed Emma to feel isolated. She started reaching out to Emma's friends, using fake accounts, planting small lies. "Emma's been talking about you. She thinks you're not a real friend. I heard Emma saying she doesn't really trust you anymore. Be careful around Emma. She's only using you." The results were almost immediate. Emma's posts became lonelier, her interactions with friends less frequent. She was retreating into herself, questioning the people around her. And Daniel? He didn't even seem to notice. Lena smiled. Perfect. But Emma wasn't broken yet. So Lena had to break her. Daniel posted a simple update: out with friends at a bar. Lena already knew the place. So she went. She dressed carefully, subtle but noticeable. Something that would make Daniel look at her and think, even for a second, that she belonged there. That she was meant to be in his world. She made sure to position herself just right, always within his line of sight, but never obvious. A game of proximity. When Emma arrived, Lena watched the shift in her body language. The uncertainty in her eyes when she noticed Lena nearby. The way she clung a little closer to Daniel. Lena smiled. Then she made her move. She walked past Daniel just as he was laughing at a joke. Their eyes met, just for a second. She didn't speak, didn't linger, just let the moment stretch before slipping away. The next morning, Emma's Instagram story was telling. No pictures of her and Daniel. A single post. Some people just don't know when to stop. Lena leaned back in her chair, satisfied. Emma was breaking. Now that doubt had settled into Emma's mind, Lena increased the pressure. She sent messages from Daniel's phone. It wasn't hard. He often left it unattended at campus events. A simple moment, a quick switch, and Lena had sent a message Emma would never expect. "I don't think this is working anymore." She watched the fallout unfold in real time. Emma's desperate attempts to reach Daniel, the frantic texts, the accusations. The tension in their relationship exploded in public, an argument unfolding in the middle of campus. Lena, watching from a safe distance, allowed herself a small smile. This was the moment she had been waiting for, because Daniel was finally free, and soon he would be hers. Lena could taste victory. For weeks, she had watched her plan unfold with calculated precision. Emma and Daniel's relationship was unraveling, thread by thread, and all she had to do was give it one final push. She had been careful, meticulous, ensuring that Emma's world collapsed from the inside. The tension between them was growing, and Daniel was slipping further and further away. But Lena wasn't satisfied yet, because Daniel still hadn't chosen her. Not yet. Lena scrolled through Emma's social media, her fingers steady as she analyzed every detail. There were no more posts about Daniel. No more comments, no more likes. Instead, Emma's page was a wasteland of cryptic captions and distant smiles. Some things just aren't meant to be. Losing what you love hurts, but losing yourself is worse. I wish I had seen the signs earlier. Lena smirked. Emma was crumbling, just as planned, but Lena knew better than to celebrate early. Emma was weak now, but weakness could breed desperation. There was still a chance she'd try to fix things with Daniel, still a chance she'd fight for him. Lena had to make sure she wouldn't. Emma's world was already teetering on the edge, but Lena wanted to make sure there was nothing left to salvage. She doubled down on the fake accounts, infiltrating Emma's DMs, whispering new doubts into her ear. Daniel never really loved you. You were just a placeholder. He's already moving on. Emma never responded, but Lena saw how the messages affected her. She changed. Her posts became more withdrawn. Her engagement with others became almost non-existent. Then came the final play. Using a newly created account, Lena sent a message pretending to be Daniel. I think it's best if we stop talking altogether. The moment the message was delivered, Lena watched as Emma's online presence vanished. Her Instagram? Deleted. Her TikTok? Private. Her Facebook? Gone. Lena leaned back, satisfied. Emma was finally out of the way. With Emma gone, Lena's next move was obvious. She needed to become Daniel's next choice. But Daniel wasn't in the right headspace for a relationship yet. He was still dealing with the aftermath of Emma. Lena had to be subtle, had to ease into his life like a familiar presence rather than an outsider. So she started small. First, she made sure to bump into him more often on campus. A casual, "Hey, funny seeing you here," at the coffee shop. A shared walk between classes. An effortless laugh at one of his jokes, perfectly timed to make him feel seen. Then, she began planting the idea of friendship. She commented on his posts, but not too much, just enough for him to notice. She replied to his stories, but in ways that felt natural, not forced. She made herself available, but never too eager. And it worked. One night, Daniel sent her a message first. "Daniel, hey, I feel like I've seen you around more lately. You're in my psych class, right?" Lena stared at the message for a long time, heart pounding. She wanted to reply instantly, but she forced herself to wait. Finally, she typed, "Lena, yeah, haha, small world." Short, simple, just enough to keep the conversation going. The more they talked, the more Daniel seemed to open up to her. He mentioned Emma less and less, and when he did, Lena knew exactly what to say. "You deserve someone who truly appreciates you. It sounds like you were the one making all the effort. You need someone who sees you for who you really are." Every word was calculated, every sentence designed to draw him closer. And it was working. Daniel began to invite her to group hangouts. He liked her posts more often. He started messaging her first. It was happening, but Lena wasn't stupid. She knew that Daniel still wasn't fully hers. And if she didn't secure her place in his life soon, someone else would. Just when things were going perfectly, a new problem appeared. Daniel posted a photo from a party with another girl. Her name was Riley. Lena clicked on her profile immediately, scanning every detail. She wasn't as pretty as Emma, but she was charming, energetic, the kind of girl who could easily steal attention. And worst of all, she looked happy with Daniel. Lena's stomach twisted. This couldn't happen. Not again. She had spent too much time, too much effort, too much planning to lose him to someone else. No, Riley had to go. Lena wasted no time. She started watching Riley's social media the same way she had watched Emma's. She studied her posts, her captions, her habits. It didn't take long to find her weak spots. Unlike Emma, Riley was reckless. She posted everything without thinking. She tagged her locations in real time. She shared details about her personal life without hesitation, which meant she was easy to manipulate. Lena started small, planting rumors just like before. Anonymous message to Riley. "Did you know Daniel was still talking to Emma?" Fake screenshots sent to Daniel. "Look what Riley said about you." Anonymous DM to one of Riley's friends. "Be careful. Riley isn't who you think she is." One by one, the cracks started to show. Soon, Riley began questioning Daniel. Soon, Daniel began distancing himself. Soon, Riley wasn't a problem anymore. And Lena? She was exactly where she needed to be. Lena had won before. She had taken down Emma with precision and patience. And now, Riley had made the mistake of stepping into Daniel's life. But Lena wasn't worried. She had done this before, and she would do it again. Lena knew that destruction wasn't always about direct confrontation. She had perfected the art of whispered lies, manipulated truths, and invisible hands pulling the strings. This wasn't just about pushing Riley away. This was about making Daniel question everything he thought he knew. The first step? Creating doubt. She started by feeding Daniel subtle suspicions, planted through their now frequent conversations. I don't know, she just seems different when you're not around. I heard someone say she was all over some other guy last weekend. Do you think she's really in this for you? Daniel would always brush it off at first. But Lena understood human psychology. The more you heard something, the more it grew roots in your mind. And doubt was like a virus. Once planted, it spread. Riley was well-liked. Unlike Emma, she had a social safety net, a circle of friends who supported her. That made her harder to isolate. But Lena was patient. She started watching Riley's social group, finding their weaknesses. She created fake accounts, pretending to be people Riley knew. She sent anonymous messages to her closest friends. Riley said something weird about you the other day. You should be careful. I don't think Riley's as loyal as you think. I heard her talking badly about you. Friendships that had once been strong began to show fractures. People stopped trusting Riley. The whispers became real. She felt it. Lena could see the stress building in her posts, the way her captions became more defensive, the way she started questioning her own circle. This was how you make someone crumble. Riley was careless with her online presence. She shared too much, too often. Lena had access to everything. Using an old account, she started liking and commenting on posts from other guys Riley had interacted with. She made sure Daniel would see it. Then she took it further. She fabricated a fake conversation between Riley and another guy, making it seem as if she had been cheating. She sent it to Daniel. I didn't want to get involved, but you should know the truth. It was all so carefully curated, so believable. Enough to make Daniel doubt Riley completely. Lena watched the fire spread. Daniel confronted Riley. Lena wasn't there, but she didn't need to be. She saw it unfold online. Their argument spilled into social media posts. Riley defended herself, but Daniel was already too far gone in his doubts. The breakup was messy, brutal, and exactly what Lena wanted. And when it was over, Daniel messaged her. Daniel, I just don't get why people can't be honest. I feel like I can't trust anyone anymore. Lena took a deep breath, savoring the moment before replying. Lena, not everyone's like that. Some people are real. Some people actually care. Daniel, I know. I think I just need better people in my life. Lena smiled. That's exactly what she wanted to hear. Lena played her part flawlessly. She was the perfect friend, always there for Daniel, always supportive, always saying just the right thing. She made sure to become his escape. You deserve someone who won't hurt you. I'll always have your back. You need people in your life who actually care about you. She knew it was working. Daniel invited her out more. They started hanging out alone. He trusted her. He needed her. And Lena was patient. Because soon, Daniel wouldn't just see her as a friend. He would see her as everything. Lena had never been closer to Daniel than she was now. With Emma and Riley both gone, Daniel had no one left to turn to except her. It was everything she had worked for, everything she had spent months crafting, manipulating, controlling. The careful destruction of the people in his life had led to this moment. But he still didn't see it. Not yet. Lena knew that love wasn't just something that happened. Love was created. It was about proximity, familiarity, comfort. If she could make Daniel feel like she was the only one who truly understood him, he would begin to need her. So she made herself indispensable. She became the first person he messaged in the morning and the last before bed. She learned exactly when he felt vulnerable, when he doubted himself, when he needed reassurance, and she was always there to provide it. You deserve someone who will never hurt you. I know exactly how you feel. I don't know why people don't appreciate you the way I do. Each carefully worded text pulled him deeper into her world. And slowly, Daniel stopped looking for anyone else. Lena had anticipated that other people might try to interfere. Friends, acquaintances, even strangers, there was always someone who would tell Daniel to move on, to meet someone new. That couldn't happen, so she controlled the narrative. She went through his contacts, finding the people who still engaged with him. She planted small doubts in Daniel's mind. Have you ever noticed how fake she is? I heard him talking about you behind your back. They don't really care about you, Daniel. Not like I do. She manipulated subtly, strategically, never too much at once, never too obvious. And one by one, his social circle shrank. Until finally, it was just the two of them. The first time Daniel truly depended on Lena was a moment she had orchestrated from the beginning. He had a terrible day. One of his professors had called him out in front of the entire class. A group project had fallen apart, and his car broke down in the rain. Lena knew about all of it before he even texted her. And she was already there, waiting. She picked him up, drove him home, made him tea, listened to him vent. And then she touched his hand. It was the first time. A simple, comforting gesture. Timed perfectly. Daniel didn't pull away. And that's when Lena knew. He was starting to let her in. Even though Daniel hadn't yet confessed feelings for her, Lena started acting as though they were already a couple. She changed the way she texted him. I miss you. You're so important to me. I don't know what I'd do without you. At first, Daniel didn't say anything back. But eventually, he started responding the same way. Lena could feel it happening. The lines were blurring. He was starting to see her not just as a friend, but as something more. It was time to take control. Lena planned the perfect evening. She invited Daniel over, made everything feel effortless. Soft lighting, music playing, a carefully planned conversation about their futures. And then she asked the question she had been waiting to ask for months. Have you ever thought about us being something more? Daniel hesitated, just for a moment, and Lena knew she had to act fast. She took his hand again, held it tighter this time. Because I have, she whispered. Daniel didn't pull away, and for Lena, that was enough. Because soon, he would be hers completely. Lena had never been closer to getting everything she wanted. Daniel had begun responding in kind, mirroring the affection, the longing. He didn't realize it yet, but he was already caught in her web. The way he leaned into her touches, the way he lingered a little too long when saying goodbye, these were signs. Signs that he was finally starting to see what Lena had seen all along. But she wasn't about to leave anything to chance. No, it was time to secure her place in his life for good. Lena knew from experience that emotions could be guided, shaped into the exact form she needed them to be. And Daniel, still bruised from the ghosts of his past relationships, was vulnerable in all the right ways. She increased her presence in his life. More messages, more casual coincidences, more carefully orchestrated moments where it was just the two of them. She started leaving small gifts, things she knew he'd love. A book from his favorite author. A coffee just the way he liked it. She dropped his name into conversations with others on campus, making sure people knew they were spending time together. She built the image of a relationship before it officially existed, so that when it finally happened, it would feel inevitable. And when Daniel hesitated, she reminded him of one thing. She was the only one who had been there for him. Even as she weaved her way deeper into Daniel's world, Lena knew there were still threats lingering in the background. His family, his professors, people who might distract him, who might question their relationship before it even truly began. So Lena did what she did best. She started controlling the narrative. First, she studied his family's online presence. She learned their schedules, their habits, their conversations. She found weaknesses, a distant relationship with his brother, an overbearing mother, a father who barely paid attention. And then she exploited them. She began suggesting doubts about his family subtly, in ways that seemed like concern rather than manipulation. I don't want to overstep, but have you ever noticed how your mom dismisses your opinions? It's weird how your brother never really reaches out, don't you think? Maybe they don't really understand you like I do. Slowly it worked. Daniel began questioning the people around him. And Lena? She was the one who always had the answers. The moment had to be perfect. Lena had visualized it 1,000 times, had rehearsed every possible scenario, every response. She didn't want it to feel forced. It had to be natural, as if it had been meant to happen all along. So she waited until the perfect opportunity presented itself. One evening, as they walked together, Daniel was venting about his day. Lena listened intently, hanging on to every word, offering sympathy where needed, encouragement where it fit. And then, as the conversation fell into a quiet lull, she made her move. She let the silence stretch just enough for the tension to build. Then she whispered, "You know you can trust me, right?" Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, she saw hesitation replaced with something else. Something closer to longing. Lena leaned in, just enough to test the waters. And then, Daniel closed the distance between them. The kiss was everything she had imagined. Soft, natural, like a confirmation of what she had known all along. And when they pulled away, Daniel smiled. Genuine, relieved, as if he had finally found something he had been searching for. Lena smiled back, masking the triumphant rush that spread through her body. She had won. Of course, Lena knew that even after the first kiss, after the first step into their new life together, there was still work to do. Daniel still had moments of uncertainty. "Do you think we're rushing into this? I don't want to mess this up. What if I'm just trying to replace what I lost?" Lena soothed every fear. She was patient, understanding. She reassured him that what they had was real. She sent long, heartfelt texts about how much he meant to her. She showed up for him in ways no one else did. She made herself irreplaceable. And slowly, those doubts disappeared. Because Daniel wasn't just falling for her. He was becoming dependent on her. Daniel and Lena were together now. It was official. Public. Everyone knew. But Lena wasn't naive. She had fought too hard to get here. And she knew deep down that people wouldn't be happy about it. There would be doubters. People who would question their relationship, who would remind Daniel of his past, of his exes, of things he was meant to leave behind. She couldn't let that happen. So, as she lay next to Daniel one night, feeling the steady rise and fall of his chest, she made a promise to herself. She wouldn't just keep him. She would make sure no one could ever take him away. Lena had Daniel exactly where she wanted him. The past few months had unfolded exactly as she had planned. Every move calculated, every doubt erased, every rival eliminated. He was hers now in every way that mattered. But there was one thing Lena had always known, buried deep in the back of her mind. Control is fragile. And no matter how much effort she put into molding Daniel's reality, there was always the risk of one wrong move. One miscalculation. One moment where everything could fall apart. It started subtly. Small things. Daniel was still affectionate, still loyal to her. But sometimes Lena caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Hesitation, uncertainty. One night, as they sat together watching a movie, he made an offhand comment. "I feel like I don't see my friends much anymore." Lena's heart clenched, but she forced a smile. She couldn't let this doubt take root. "I know," she said, feigning sympathy. "It's just been a weird couple of months, hasn't it? I think people have been distant, but that's on them, not on you." She kissed him softly, redirecting his focus. And for that night, it worked. But Lena knew this wasn't over. She needed to do more. And that moment was coming. Lena doubled down on her control. She adjusted her tactics, made her grip on Daniel's life tighter, but in a way that felt invisible. She casually suggested that some of his old friends were talking behind his back. She planted seeds of doubt about his co-workers. Little comments about how they might not actually care about him. She made sure he relied on her more than ever, reassuring him that she was the only one who truly understood him. And at first, it worked. Daniel stayed close, leaned into her support, kept choosing her over anyone else. But then, the unexpected happened. One afternoon, as Lena was scrolling through Daniel's phone, a habit she had perfected, ensuring there were no surprises, she saw a name she hadn't seen in months. Emma. A single message. "Emma, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I just wanted to say I hope you're doing okay. If you ever want to catch up, I'm here." Lena's blood ran cold. She should have been gone. She had made sure of it. Emma was supposed to be out of Daniel's life for good. So why was she back? Lena knew she had two options. Confront Daniel about the message. Demand that he cut Emma off completely. Handle Emma herself. She chose the second. Because if Daniel started questioning things now, everything could fall apart. She needed to shut Emma down before she could plant any new ideas in his head. Lena created a new, anonymous number and sent a message. "Lena, anonymous, you need to stay out of Daniel's life. He's moved on. Don't contact him again." She waited. A few minutes later, Emma responded. Emma, who is this? Lena's fingers clenched around her phone. Emma was still trying, still pushing. So Lena sent another message. Lena, anonymous, just leave him alone. You already ruined things once. Don't make it worse. And then she blocked Emma's number. Problem solved. The next day, Lena and Daniel were sitting at a cafe when he sighed, rubbing his temples. Something weird happened, he muttered. What do you mean? Lena asked, feigning innocence. Emma texted me, and then a little while later, she said she got some weird message telling her to leave me alone. Lena's heart pounded, but she kept her expression neutral. That is weird, she said slowly. Maybe someone saw her message and thought they were helping you? Maybe, Daniel sighed. I don't know. It just feels like I don't have control over my own life anymore. A spark of fear shot through Lena. That wasn't something he had ever said before. She had to fix this. Fast. That night, Lena changed her approach. Instead of pushing harder, she shifted tactics. She made herself vulnerable. She waited until Daniel was lying in bed, scrolling through his phone, and then she whispered, Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough for you. That caught his attention. Just as she intended, Daniel turned to face her, concern in his eyes. What? Why would you say that? I don't know, she sighed. I guess I just feel like I'm always trying to prove how much I love you, but maybe I'm doing too much. She let her voice break slightly, just enough to make it seem real. Daniel immediately softened. No, don't think that, he murmured, pulling her close. You're amazing. I don't know what I'd do without you. Lena let herself sink into his embrace, masking her victorious smile. She had successfully redirected his doubts away from himself, away from her, and back into protecting their relationship. Just the way she needed. Lena knew now that she had to be more careful. Emma had been a warning. Daniel's doubts had been a red flag. But she had corrected course. She had gotten ahead of the problem. And now, more than ever, she knew what needed to be done. She couldn't just hold on to Daniel. She had to make sure no one could ever take him away again. Lena had weathered the first storm. Daniel's doubts had been neutralized before they could fully take root. Emma's unexpected return had been a warning shot. But Lena had acted swiftly, ensuring that she was still the only voice in Daniel's life that truly mattered. But now she knew one thing for certain. It wasn't enough to keep him close. She needed to make sure he had no reason to ever leave. Daniel was already attached to Lena, but attachment wasn't the same as total reliance. She needed him to feel that she was more than just his girlfriend. She had to be his home, his safety, his entire world. So Lena carefully began restructuring his life. She subtly encouraged him to drop commitments that didn't involve her. She convinced him that his work was draining him, that he should focus on things that made him happier, things that revolved around her. She insisted on handling little details for him, his schedules, reminders, even replying to messages on his behalf. At first, Daniel resisted. I don't want to lose touch with things. I feel like I should be able to handle things myself. But Lena knew how to bend his resistance without breaking it. I just want to make things easier for you. Let me take care of you the way you deserve. I love doing this for you. It makes me happy. And slowly he let go. He started depending on her for the little things. And Lena knew it was only a matter of time before he would depend on her for everything. There was still one problem. Daniel's past hadn't fully died. Emma had tried to return, and even though Lena had handled it, she knew others could follow. Old friends, family, colleagues, people who might remind Daniel of the life he had before her. She couldn't risk it, so she began the final stage of isolation, disrupting friendships. She used fake messages, anonymous comments, and carefully placed lies to sow discord between Daniel and his old friends. She manipulated situations to make them seem unreliable, disloyal, or uninterested in his well-being. Soon, Daniel was saying things like, I just don't think they really care. It feels like they don't make an effort anymore. Undermining family ties. Lena reframed every family interaction in a negative light. If his mother sent a short message, she doesn't respect your time. If his brother didn't check in, he doesn't really care about you. If his father asked about his future, they just want to control you. Slowly, Daniel's responses shifted. I don't think they really understand me. They've never supported me the way you do, reinforcing her role as his only support. Every time Daniel felt uncertain, Lena was there to comfort him. Every time he lost another connection, Lena was there to tell him it was okay. You have me. You don't need anyone else. We're enough for each other. And finally, Daniel said the words Lena had been waiting for. I don't know what I'd do without you. She had won, but she wasn't done. Now that Daniel was truly hers, Lena needed to make sure everyone else knew it too. She started making small, public declarations of ownership. She posted more pictures of them together, constant, undeniable proof that they were a couple. She left subtle but firm replies to anyone who interacted with Daniel online. We had such an amazing time last night, didn't we? Red heart. So proud of my love and everything he does. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Daniel and I are so excited for our plans this weekend. She even made a couple's account, one of those shared profiles that erased the idea of individuality. And Daniel never fought it. If anything, he barely noticed. He was already so deep inside her world that he didn't see how small his own had become. One day, as Lena scrolled through Daniel's phone, she noticed a single unread message. It wasn't from Emma, or an old friend, or even family. It was from an unknown number, and it only said 2 words. Wake up. Lena's hands clenched around the device. Someone knew. Someone was watching, paying attention, trying to warn Daniel. Lena's mind raced. Who could it be? What did they know? How had they noticed something that Daniel himself hadn't even realized? And, more importantly, how was she going to stop them? Because now, more than ever, Lena knew one thing for certain. She would not let anyone take Daniel away from her. Not now. Not ever. Lena sat in silence, staring at Daniel's phone. Wake up. 2 simple words. But their meaning was crystal clear. Someone was watching. Someone had noticed her work, her careful crafting of Daniel's world. And worst of all, someone was trying to undo it. Lena's mind spun as she went through the list of possible suspects. Emma? No, she was gone. Lena had made sure of that. Riley? No, she had been removed long before she could pose a threat. One of Daniel's old friends? Possibly. But which one? A stranger? Someone who had seen the changes in Daniel and decided to intervene? She needed to find out who it was. And she needed to stop them. Lena knew that confronting Daniel about the message outright would be a mistake. If she made it seem like a big deal, he might start asking questions. Instead, she played it carefully. That evening, as they sat together, she casually picked up her phone and sighed. Ugh, people are so weird lately. Daniel glanced at her. What do you mean? She hesitated, just long enough to make him curious. I've just been getting weird messages lately. Anonymous ones. Daniel frowned. What kind of messages? She exhaled. Just creepy ones. You know, people who think they know everything about your life and try to warn you about things. It's kind of scary. She watched as Daniel processed her words. She saw the moment he made the connection. And just as she hoped, he picked up his phone, staring at the unread message. That's weird. I got something like that too. Lena's stomach flipped in triumph. Hook. Line. Sinker. Daniel sighed, shaking his head. Maybe it's just a prank. Lena feigned concern. I don't know, it just makes me uncomfortable. Like, what if someone's trying to mess with us? Daniel's jaw tightened. I don't like that. Perfect. She planted the fear, but let him carry the weight of it. If he felt like he needed to protect her, he would be less likely to question her motives. I think you should block the number, she suggested softly. Daniel nodded without hesitation. Yeah, you should too. And with that, Lena watched the threat disappear. At least for now. But she wasn't stupid. Whoever had sent that message would likely try again. She needed to find them before they got another chance. Lena spent the next few days carefully investigating. She checked Daniel's contacts, his social media, looking for anyone who had been acting strange. And then she found it. One of Daniel's old friends, Marco. Marco had been one of the last people Daniel had started pulling away from. He had been hesitant, had still reached out occasionally, even when Daniel started retreating from everyone else. And more importantly, Marco had recently posted something suspicious on his Instagram story. It's hard watching someone lose themselves. I just hope they realize before it's too late. Lena's pulse quickened. It had to be him. Lena needed to eliminate Marco from Daniel's life, permanently. But this time she had to be smart. Unlike Emma and Riley, Marco wasn't an ex. He was a best friend, someone Daniel had known for years. She couldn't just push him out in the same way. She had to make Daniel want to leave him behind, so she started crafting the perfect lie. She waited until the moment was right, when Daniel was already in a bad mood, already frustrated with his day. Then, she pulled out her phone with a hesitant expression. Daniel noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" Lena bit her lip. "I don't know if I should say anything." Daniel sat up straighter. "What? Tell me." She sighed. "It's just, I saw something Marco posted. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it." Daniel frowned, grabbing his phone. "What did he say?" Lena pulled up the screenshot she had saved earlier. Marco's cryptic Instagram story. Daniel read it in silence. She could see the gears turning in his head. Was Marco talking about him? Had he been saying things behind his back? Had he been meddling where he didn't belong? Lena waited, then said just the right words. "I just feel like, maybe he doesn't support you the way he should." Daniel exhaled sharply. "Yeah, maybe you're right." The next day, Daniel barely responded to Marco's messages. The day after that, he ignored them completely. And a week later, they weren't talking at all. Marco had tried to fight for their friendship, had even sent one final text. "Marco, I don't know what's going on with you, man, but I hope you're okay. Just know I'm still here when you wake up from whatever this is." But Daniel never responded, and Lena smiled as she watched the message remain unread. With Marco gone, Lena knew she had secured her place. Daniel was completely wrapped around her. No more distractions. No more people trying to wake him up. She had built the perfect reality for them. And now she could finally breathe easy, because Daniel wasn't just hers. He had nowhere else to go, and that was exactly how she wanted it. Lena had never felt more powerful. Marco was gone. Emma was out of the picture. Riley had long since disappeared into irrelevance. Daniel had no one left, and that meant he was completely, utterly, unquestionably hers. But Lena knew better than to grow comfortable. She had come too far to let something, or someone, ruin her masterpiece now. So she began the final phase of her plan. Daniel was already deeply dependent on Lena, but dependency wasn't the same as permanence. She needed to make sure he never even considered a life without her. She started mentioning the future more often, casually, as if it was something they both just naturally expected. "I can't wait until we get our own place someday. Imagine us 5 years from now traveling together. I think we should get a pet soon. It'd make our home feel more complete." She planted the idea of complete devotion into his mind. "You're the only person I can imagine spending my life with. I don't know what I'd do without you. You're my home, Daniel. No one else has ever made me feel this way." She ensured that his entire routine revolved around her. They woke up together. They ate together. They spent evenings together. She made sure there were no gaps in his life that she wasn't filling. And slowly, Daniel stopped questioning things. Stopped wondering about the past. Stopped thinking about a life outside of her. Lena had made sure of it, but Lena wasn't naive. She knew that even after everything, Daniel might still harbor a sliver of independence. She had to be sure that his devotion was absolute, so she devised a test. One night, as they lay together, Lena let out a deep sigh. She turned to him, her voice small, uncertain. "Daniel, do you ever think about what life would be like if we never met?" She felt him tense beside her. A long pause. Then he exhaled, shaking his head. "I don't know. I don't really want to think about it. That wasn't good enough." Lena turned away slightly, making her breath hitch, as if she was holding back tears. Daniel immediately reacted, pulling her close. "Hey, why would you even ask that? You know I love you." Lena let herself relax against him. Perfect. Everything was going exactly according to plan, until a new, unexpected threat appeared. A message. Not from Marco. Not from Emma. Not from Riley. This time it was from Daniel's workplace. "Boss, hey Daniel, we need to talk. I've noticed you haven't been as engaged lately. Let's catch up soon." Lena's stomach twisted. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had carefully orchestrated Daniel's world so that his job was nothing more than a background detail. Something that didn't matter. Something he wouldn't invest in. If his boss started pulling him back in, he might start feeling independent again. She couldn't allow that. Lena had two choices. Convince Daniel to quit. Make his job untenable. She tried the first. "You've been so stressed lately, babe. Maybe it's time to move on. I hate seeing you exhausted all the time. Wouldn't it be nice to just step away? You don't even like this job." You deserve something better. But Daniel hesitated. I don't know. I mean, I've worked here for years. Lena bit her tongue. He wasn't listening. So, she went with option 2. That night, while Daniel slept, Lena unlocked his phone and found his work email. She drafted an email from his account to his boss. A simple but devastating message. Daniel, I'm honestly questioning whether this job is even worth my time anymore. I don't feel valued, and at this point, I'm not sure if I should even bother showing up. Maybe it's time for me to move on. She sent it, and in the morning, when Daniel woke up, his job was already hanging by a thread. By the time Daniel saw the response from his boss, a cold, professional reply expressing disappointment and suggesting they discuss his future at the company, he was already doubting himself. Lena saw the frustration in his eyes, and she pounced. I'm so sorry, baby, but maybe this is a sign. Maybe it's time for something new. You don't need that stress in your life. You have me. We'll figure it out together. Daniel sighed, defeated, and just like that, his last tie to the outside world was severed. Lena knew she had won. Daniel had no friends, no family connections, no job to keep him grounded, no reason to ever question her. And best of all, he wasn't even trying to escape. If anything, he was more affectionate than ever. He held her closer. He thanked her for always supporting him. He looked at her like she was his only light in the world. And she was, because she had made sure of it. Lena lay awake that night, running her fingers through Daniel's hair as he slept. She had built this life exactly how she wanted it, but there was still one final step left. It wasn't enough for Daniel to belong to her. She needed him to believe that she was the only thing that had ever mattered. And soon, she would take the final step to ensure he never, ever left. Because Lena knew one thing for certain: true love is forever. And she was willing to do whatever it took to make sure Daniel understood that. Lena could feel the finish line approaching. Daniel was finally where he was supposed to be, completely reliant on her, emotionally and mentally tied to her in ways she had always dreamed of. But despite everything, a small, nagging feeling remained buried deep in her gut. There was still a chance for it all to fall apart. She couldn't let that happen. So, she took the final steps to ensure there was no way out. Lena had always known that the ultimate way to solidify control was through commitment. Daniel, stripped of his previous support systems, was finally in a place where he needed her in every way. So, she planted the idea carefully. Do you ever think about marriage? She asked one night, feigning innocence. It's crazy how some people just know when they've found the one. I could spend forever with you. She watched his reactions carefully. At first, Daniel hesitated. I don't know. I mean, marriage is a big step. But Lena knew hesitation was just fear. And fear was something she could easily erase. It doesn't have to be scary, she murmured. It just means we belong to each other forever. She let the words linger, let the warmth of her presence override any remaining doubt in his mind. And as the days passed, Daniel's resistance melted. She knew he was starting to believe it, but just when everything was falling into place, a new threat emerged. One afternoon, Daniel left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. Lena, as always, checked it. Her stomach dropped. A message from an unknown number. Unknown, Daniel, I don't know what's going on, but you're not yourself. Call me when you can. Lena's fingers curled into a tight fist. Who was still trying to reach him? Who was still watching? She had eliminated every known threat. Marco, Emma, Riley, all removed. So who was this? She had to act quickly. Lena took a deep breath and did what she always did best. She took control. She deleted the message. Then she blocked the number. And for extra security, she went through his call history, making sure no unknown numbers had slipped past her before. She couldn't risk any more outside influences. Daniel was hers, and she wouldn't let anyone take him away. With the last obstacle seemingly removed, Lena intensified her efforts to push Daniel into a deeper commitment. She began discussing moving away together. Wouldn't it be nice to start somewhere fresh? Just the two of us, a new city, a new life. No stress, no drama, just us. Daniel didn't disagree. Lena could see it, he was considering it. And once he said yes, once he agreed to leave everything behind, there would be nothing left to pull him away from her. No family, no friends, no outside world. Just Lena, and the love she had spent so long crafting. Just as she was about to bring up officially moving, Daniel hesitated. I just, I don't know if I'm ready to leave everything behind. Lena's smile didn't falter, but inside she was seething. She had spent so long breaking him down, removing every single thing that could pull him away. How was there still hesitation? She needed to act. And fast. Lena knew she had to make Daniel cling to her more than ever. So she did what she did best. She created a scenario where she was the only one he could trust. That night, as they lay in bed, she let out a quiet sob. Daniel immediately turned to her. "Lena, what's wrong?" She wiped her eyes, pretending to be embarrassed. "Nothing. It's stupid." That only made him more concerned. "Talk to me." And that's when she broke down, or at least made it seem like she did. "I just feel like people don't want us to be happy," she whispered. "Like they're trying to ruin what we have." Daniel tensed. "Who?" Lena let the silence stretch. Then she whispered, "I think someone is watching us." Daniel's breath hitched. "What?" Lena nodded, her voice shaking. "I keep seeing things. Strange messages. Weird accounts popping up on my social media. Someone is trying to get to us, Daniel." She felt his arms tighten around her. "Just as planned. I won't let anyone hurt you," he said firmly. Lena closed her eyes, letting his words sink in. Now he wasn't just protecting himself from the outside world. He was protecting her too. She had officially turned his fear into loyalty. With Daniel on edge, with his defenses raised against everyone but her, Lena knew she was close. She just needed one last push. And then there would be no turning back. Lena had come too far to let doubt creep in now. Daniel was hers. She had erased every possible distraction, every single person who might have steered him away from her. She had controlled his environment, softened his will, and turned his love for her into the only thing that mattered. But there was one last step, one final move to ensure he would never, ever leave. And Lena was ready to play it. Since she had planted the idea that someone was watching them, Daniel had grown more paranoid. He was tense whenever they went outside. He checked over his shoulder more often. His sleep was restless, plagued by whispers of doubt and fear, which meant he leaned on her more than ever. Lena, always one step ahead, reinforced his need for her. "I don't feel safe when we're apart. I think we should stay together as much as possible. We need to be careful, Daniel. You never know who's out there." And Daniel agreed. Every time. Because the walls she had built around him were now his only reality. Lena knew she needed to push him further, make him completely reliant on her protection. So, she created a crisis. One evening, as they walked home from a late dinner, Lena suddenly gasped, gripping Daniel's arm tightly. "Did you see that?" Daniel stopped in his tracks, instantly alert. "What? What happened?" Lena's breath was ragged. I think someone was watching us." Across the street, Daniel's eyes darted around, scanning the dimly lit road. There was no one there, but Lena made sure he felt the fear. "I know I saw something. Daniel, what if someone's following us? I don't feel safe anymore." And just as she expected, Daniel's protective instincts took over. He wrapped his arm around her and hurried them home. Lena let herself tremble in his arms, letting him believe that he was keeping her safe. In truth, she was locking him in. That night, as they sat together in the small apartment, Daniel was still on edge. "I don't like this," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I don't want you to feel unsafe." Lena took a deep breath. This was the moment. She turned to him, eyes wide with concern. "Maybe we should leave." Daniel blinked. "What?" "Start over somewhere new. Somewhere we don't have to be afraid." She let the words sink in, watching as Daniel processed the idea. "You mean move away? Leave everything behind?" Lena nodded slowly. "It's the only way to be safe, Daniel." She saw the hesitation in his face, but she knew it wouldn't last. Because at this point, Daniel wasn't making his own choices anymore. She was making them for him. Lena knew that if she wanted Daniel to leave everything behind, she had to create a final reason. So she sent herself a threat. Using an untraceable number, she texted her own phone. "Unknown, you can't run forever. I know where you are." Then she let Daniel find it. "Daniel," she whispered, voice shaking, as she handed him the phone. His expression darkened as he read the message. "That's it," he muttered. "We're leaving." Lena let out a soft, relieved sigh, as if she had just been given permission to breathe. But in reality, she was smiling inside, because Daniel had just made the decision she wanted all along. Before they left, Lena made sure Daniel had nothing left to come back to. She helped him draft a resignation email to his job. She convinced him to deactivate his social media, for safety, of course. She encouraged him to cut off contact with his family, because if they knew where he was going, they could lead the danger to them. Piece by piece, Daniel severed every connection to his past, until there was nothing left except for her. The day they left, Lena sat in the passenger seat of Daniel's car, watching the city fade behind them. This was it. This was the moment she had been building toward. Daniel was no longer just her boyfriend. He was hers in every way that mattered. And as they drove further into the unknown, Lena leaned back, finally allowing herself to relax. She had won, but there was still one last thing left to do. She needed to make sure Daniel never even thought about looking back. Because love wasn't just about being together. It was about making sure there was no other option. The drive was long, stretching across endless miles of highway. Daniel's hands gripped the wheel tightly, knuckles white with tension. The further they got from the city, the less sure he seemed. Lena noticed, of course. She noticed everything. The way his breathing had quickened, the way his jaw clenched and unclenched, the way his fingers twitched as if they wanted to turn the car around. She couldn't allow that. This wasn't just a getaway. This was their new life. And Daniel needed to believe that there was nothing left behind worth returning to. Lena took a slow, calming breath before she spoke. "I know this is scary," she murmured, reaching over to squeeze his arm gently. "But we're doing the right thing." Daniel exhaled through his nose, still staring straight ahead. It all happened so fast." Lena nodded sympathetically. "I know, baby, but it's for the best." She let a moment of silence settle between them before delivering the final blow. "There's nothing left for us back there, Daniel." She watched his expression carefully, waiting to see how the words landed. His lips pressed into a thin line. Uncertainty, fear, doubt. Lena couldn't have that. She reached into the center console and pulled out Daniel's phone. It was time. She turned it in her hands before holding it out to him. "I think we should get rid of these." Daniel hesitated, glancing between her and the phone. "What?" Lena gave him a soft, patient smile. "It's how they can find us, how they can track us. If we're really going to start over, we need to leave everything behind." His fingers flexed around the steering wheel. "I don't know, Lena." She tilted her head. "Who would even call you, Daniel?" Silence. She let the question hang in the air, giving him time to process what she had worked so hard to make true. There was no one left. Daniel swallowed hard, then slowly reached out and took the phone from her hand. Lena watched as he stared at it, fingers hovering over the power button. Then, with a slow exhale, he turned it off. And for the first time since they left, Lena truly smiled. The town they arrived in was small, isolated, perfect. Lena had done her research meticulously. A quiet cabin rental on the outskirts. No neighbors close enough to hear anything they didn't need to. A town where nobody knew them, where nobody would ask questions. Where Daniel wouldn't be reminded of the life he left behind. Lena took in the surroundings with satisfaction. This would work. As Daniel pulled into the driveway, he let out a shaky breath. "I guess this is it." Lena turned to him with a warm, loving smile. "Yes, baby. This is home now." She leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to his cheek. "It's just us." And finally she saw it, the flicker of acceptance in his eyes. The next few days were all about adjustment. Lena ensured that they built a routine, a life that felt normal, comfortable, familiar. Morning coffee together, sitting by the window, watching the quiet town move at its own slow pace. Grocery runs where Lena always held his hand, ensuring he never strayed too far. Nights curled up on the couch, watching old movies, Daniel leaning into her touch more and more. She reinforced the idea that they had made the right decision. "Can you imagine dealing with all that stress back home? This is so much better for us. We're safe here. We have each other." Slowly, she watched Daniel relax. His old habits, the way he used to check his phone, the way he used to mention his past, started to fade. He was settling into the world she created for him. And Lena, she had never felt so at peace. But something wasn't quite perfect yet. Lena knew Daniel still had fleeting moments of doubt. A pause before he responded. A hesitation in his touch, as if a part of him still remembered that he once had a choice. She needed to erase that completely. One evening, as they lay in bed, she turned to him, her voice soft and unsure. "Do you still trust me?" Daniel blinked at her, brows furrowing. "Of course I do." She let her fingers trace circles on his arm. "Then promise me something." Daniel shifted slightly. "What is it?" Lena inhaled deeply, looking him straight in the eyes. "Promise me you'll never leave me." She watched his reaction carefully. The hesitation, the flicker of thought, and she knew then there was still work to be done. Because love wasn't just about being together. It was about making sure they could never be apart. And if Daniel wasn't fully convinced yet, Lena would make sure he was. Lena had won, or at least she had thought she had. The routine she had built for Daniel was working. The small, quiet town was their sanctuary, their escape from the world she had carefully erased behind them. He barely spoke of his past anymore. The hesitations, the lingering thoughts, they were fading. And yet something was shifting. It was subtle at first. A flicker in his eyes when she spoke. A pause before he agreed with her. A quiet moment where she caught him staring out the window, as if longing for something she had tried so hard to erase. She wasn't losing him. Not now. Not after everything. Lena needed to act. Lena began to notice the changes more frequently. Daniel started going on walks alone, something he never used to do. He spent longer stretches of time in silence, deep in thought. He didn't say, "I love you," as often, and when he did, it felt empty. One evening, she casually asked, "Are you happy?" Daniel hesitated, a fraction too long. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course. Lena's stomach twisted. He was lying, and if she didn't fix it, she would lose everything. Lena knew she had to pull Daniel back in before his mind wandered too far. She became more affectionate, more present, more in control. She planned special nights, candlelit dinners, deep conversations about their future, reminders of how much they meant to each other. She repeated the same reassurances over and over. "We're safe here. We made the right choice. This is the only place where we belong." She planted the idea that the outside world was still a danger. "You never know who's looking for us. People wouldn't understand our love, Daniel. We have to protect what we have." But something was different now. This time it wasn't working. One afternoon, Lena left Daniel alone for an hour while she ran errands. When she returned, something felt off. The house was too quiet. The air felt wrong. And then she saw it. Daniel's phone. Turned on. And opened to his messages. Lena's blood ran cold as she stepped forward, her heart hammering in her chest. He had turned it on. He had tried to reach someone. She grabbed the device, scanning the screen. A single outgoing message stared back at her. "Daniel, I don't know who else to turn to. I think I need help." Lena's vision blurred with rage. No, no, no. He wasn't supposed to do this. Lena gripped the phone tightly in her hand, her pulse racing. She turned to see Daniel standing in the doorway, his face pale, his hands shaking slightly. He knew. He had seen her reading it. He knew she had found out. For the first time, she saw something she had never seen in Daniel before. Fear, but not of the world, not of imaginary threats. Of her. Lena took a slow step forward, forcing a smile onto her face. "Daniel, what is this?" His breathing was uneven. I don't know if this is right anymore, Lena." Her chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Daniel swallowed hard. "I feel trapped." Lena's fingers curled around the phone, nails digging into the case. Trapped? After everything she had done for him? After everything she had sacrificed? No, she wasn't going to lose him. Lena's mind raced. She had two choices. Convince him. Make him see that he was just confused, that he was scared, that she was the only person in the world who truly loved him. Stop him. Ensure that Daniel never had the opportunity to leave. Ever. She took a deep breath, forcing her voice to stay calm. "Daniel, you don't really mean that." He hesitated. That was good. That meant she could still fix this. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing against his arm. "You're just scared, and I understand. But leaving isn't the answer." His gaze flickered, uncertain. Lena took another step. "You love me. You know that, don't you?" She needed him to say it. She needed him to believe it. Because if he didn't, if he refused, then there was only one way this could end. Lena had spent months crafting the perfect reality. And now, it was unraveling right in front of her. Daniel stood there, his eyes filled with something she had never seen before, defiance. It sent a sharp pulse of fear through her, mingling with the anger burning inside her chest. She couldn't lose him. She wouldn't lose him. This was supposed to be forever. Lena's breath came out in slow, measured exhales as she stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. "Daniel, please. You're making a mistake." He took a step back. Lena's stomach twisted. He had never done that before. He had never looked at her like this. Like she was the threat. She softened her voice, reaching out. "I love you. I've done everything for us." Daniel shook his head. "This isn't love, Lena." Her heart clenched at the words. No, he was wrong. He had to be wrong. Lena's entire body tensed as Daniel moved toward the door. She couldn't let him leave. She had spent too long keeping them together, ensuring nothing could come between them. And now, after all of it, he was just going to walk away? Her mind raced. She could fix this. She had to fix this. Before he reached the handle, she stepped in front of him. "Daniel, don't do this. Just talk to me." Daniel's jaw clenched. "I can't, Lena. I need to go." "No. No, no, no." She had one last chance. Lena took a shaky breath and forced herself to smile. "You won't make it without me." Daniel exhaled sharply, his shoulders tense. "That's what you want me to think." His words sent a crack through her carefully constructed world. He wasn't confused. He wasn't scared. He had already decided. And Lena knew this was the end. Daniel reached for the door, his movements rushed and desperate. Lena could have fought, could have screamed, could have done something to stop him. But she didn't. She just stood there as the door swung open and Daniel disappeared into the night, his silhouette swallowed by the darkness. And just like that, he was gone. Lena's knees buckled as the reality sank in. Daniel had left. For the first time, she had lost. Her hands clenched into fists, her mind spiraling. He would come back. He had to. He wouldn't survive without her. He'd realize what they had was real. He'd see that she was the only one who had ever truly loved him. Right. She forced herself to take deep, steady breaths. This wasn't over. Not yet. But before Lena could formulate a new plan, the sound of sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights flashed against the windows, illuminating the small cabin with an eerie glow. A deep sense of dread settled in Lena's chest. And then, a knock at the door. It was over. Daniel had gone straight to the authorities. He had finally broken free. Lena took a final glance around the life she had built, the world she had so carefully crafted. And with one last, shuddering breath, she opened the door. Daniel sat in the back of the police car, staring out at the darkened road ahead. For the first time in months, he could breathe. The weight of her control, the fear that had wrapped around him like a vice, it was finally gone. He wasn't sure where he would go from here, how he would start over, how he would undo the damage that had been done. But he was free, and that was all that mattered. As the car pulled away from the cabin, leaving Lena and her twisted love behind, Daniel closed his eyes and whispered two words to himself. "It's over."